Top 10 richest people in history. If you thought people like Jeff Bezos were the richest people in the history, then be prepared to have your mind blown. Rulers and genius businessmen have always existed, and if you were to know how much the richest of them had, it would make your head spin. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. If you are new to the channel, then welcome to 1%. Here we will give you only facts. And right now, these are the top 10 richest people to ever exist. Number 10. Osman Ali Khan, $230 billion. You may have heard of Gautam Adani and Ambani family, but they can only hope to reach a fraction of what Osman Ali Khan, the richest Indian, accumulated. Born in 1886, he was the 7th Nizam of the Hyderabad state. But how did he accumulate so much wealth in a country that had not achieved independence yet? Well, you can call him the Diamond King because he owned the famous diamond mines of Golconda. These mines were the major source of wealth for the Nizams. And at that time, Hyderabad was the sole supplier of diamonds in the global market. Having monopoly over the global diamond market definitely contributes to a lot of riches. And it shows in his total assets, which amounts to a staggering number of $230 billion in the current market. If he had not spent his money for the better of the people, then he would definitely be high up in our list. Elon Musk, $286 billion. Probably the only person in our list from this generation. Elon Musk is a genius businessman, and while people have a lot of things to say about him, he will always be remembered as one of the richest people to ever exist. Unless you have been living under a rock or watching these videos decades from now. Elon is the CEO of Tesla. He owns 16% stakes at Tesla, which amounts to $130 billion. And the rest of his wealth comes from various other assets, including space exploration technologies, the Boring Company, that's a real name, and Twitter. Although that last bit is still shrouded in controversy. In total, he owns over $280 billion. His fame skyrocketed in 2020 when his Tesla shares soared over 740%, tremendously increasing his ranking among the richest people. In January 2021, he became the richest person, kicking Jeff Bezos off the throne, and earned the title of richest person alive, which he still holds. If you think about it, once he colonizes other planets, he might just become the richest person outside Earth. Nicholas Romanov, $300 billion. Nicholas II was the last emperor of Russia, and the sole reason communism exists. At that time, the people of Russia still suffered from poverty. So how did this man become so rich? Well, you must have heard of the joke of how Russia sold Alaska to America. He sold it for $7.2 million. He eventually lost his head for his actions. Talk about taking so many L's. Anyways, he might be the most incompetent ruler Russia has seen. Yes, even more than Putin, as his hunger for other things led him to his downfall. But it got him all his riches. Again, a fair trade perhaps. He had tremendous assets, earning up to $300 billion. John D Rockefeller, $400 billion. John D Rockefeller, known as the Oil King of America, was probably the wealthiest person alive in his time. He founded the Standard Oil Company as after he saw the fledgling oil business in the 1860s. He saw the opportunity and got the most out of it. At that time, America accounted for 85% of the global crude oil, and 90% of that oil market was controlled by none other than John. Throughout his life, he had earned over $1.5 trillion, but in his peak, he had an estimate of $400 billion by today's standard, as expected of the richest oil king in history. Mansa Musa, $415 billion. What happens if a rich kid makes effort to become even richer? That's the story of Mansa Musa, a person so rich that he broke economies by passing through countries and giving away gold. His total wealth is still a rough estimate, but it is said that he had an unbelievable amount of $415 billion. How did he do that? He inherited a rich kingdom and took advantage of the resources by expanding the country's salt and gold deposits. He also made great strides in expanding learning in Islamic world by making Mali its center. But did you know, the reason we have so much literature on him is because of his pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, where people were left speechless by the showcase of his wealth. Some may even say he was also the biggest cash flow flexor in the history. King Solomon, $2.2 trillion. King Solomon, a man so great that even Bible tells of how rich he was and how everything he earned was spent on the good things. He will make the previous entries look poor, as he had a wealth of over $2.2 trillion. His riches were accumulated through various means, but the biggest one is the annual gold he received, which is mentioned in the Bible to be 25 tons for 39 years straight. That is enough to make a palace made of literal gold bricks. Imagine how burglars would rob that palace. He also earned through taxes and other trades. But worry not, as he spent a lot of his wealth in good ways, as he built the first temple in Jerusalem. Caesar Augustus, $4.6 trillion. The ruler of one of the biggest empires, Augustus Caesar, is fourth on this list. His wealth is considered to be $4.6 billion by today's standards. But how did he earn so much? Well, you may be forgetting his achievements, as this man literally owned Egypt. He could have had a Caesar salad on top of the Sphinx if he wanted. His riches were present in the form of 10 million gold coins, which alone would make him almost as rich as Elon Musk. Aside from that, ruling the Roman Empire and inheriting the tremendous wealth of his ancestors also gave him quite the money. According to some, he was also called the life of the party, as he spent millions annually for different public entertainment events. Not to mention, he also had to spend $250 billion for his army annually. Akbar I, $21 trillion. Akbar I is a well-known figure in the Eastern culture, as most of his influence was centered in Asia, and unlike other rulers, he left the West alone. To get an idea of how rich he once owned over 25% of the world GDP. He makes even Augustus Caesar pale in comparison, as his wealth amounts to $21 trillion. Akbar lived a lavish life filled with luxuries, as he not only built 3 of the most beautiful palaces in history, but he also decorated them each with some of the most expensive artworks and ornaments. He also tried to make his own religion, mixing Hinduism and Islam, which at that time was a political maneuver because his people were heavily divided in these 2 religions. And doing this was his way to uniting them. If Twitter existed back then, he would definitely have been cancelled for this. Shen Song, $30 trillion. The richest Chinese emperor to ever live. Shen Song ruled China during the 10th century. He was the reason China became so prosperous at that time, as he allowed even the most common people to have big opportunities in his kingdom. If you think Akbar having 25% of global GDP was big, wait until you hear about Shen Song, who was recorded to have over 30% of the global GDP. Surely, that says enough about his fortune. At the peak of his time, his riches worth over $30 trillion by today's markets. Although most of the records show how generous he was to improve the lives of the common people, very little is known about his personal life. Yet, his palaces still stand firmly as architectural landmarks. Number 1. Genghis Khan, over $100 trillion. The most wealthiest man on this list has to be someone who can exceed everyone prior in not only business, but also chivalry and generosity, right? Well, this man doesn't. He is the one who brought great devastation, being not only one of the most ruthless leaders, but also the one who can be considered closest to conquering the entire world. Genghis Khan had over $100 trillion to his name, and even more of an influence over the world. His riches and conquest brings everyone else to their knees. A man who can do such atrocities collected all his wealth through wars, exploits, and all other unethical means. Perhaps that's what it takes for a man to be as rich as him. But we don't recommend having him as your role model. Regardless, the only good thing about him was how he distributed his wealth among his subjects. Now, You know what it takes to be one of the richest in the world? A kingdom, a lot of inheritance from your ancestors, and many loyal subjects to exploit. Or you can follow the examples of the current richest people who have built their business empires from scratch. Let us know if you enjoyed the video by pressing the like button and turning that notification bell on. If you found this informative, let us know your opinion in the comment section. Until then, stay safe.